Chelsea, seriously, I just want you to know that I was here when this happened.
It's a stretch, and it's in, and I can't remember the last time I saw something like this. Aguero! Guess who? It's him again.
What's up, and welcome to Absolute Sitter. I am your host, Mac, and I want to thank you for checking out this content. So today, I want to talk about two things that I think it's not too early to speak about, especially to Chelsea fans. I think even opposition fans can learn a little bit from what I'm going to talk about here, because while this is more specifically geared towards Chelsea fans, this is a problem that I think can bleed over into other clubs. So I'm going to say the quiet part out loud. One of the things that consumers of the media, whether you're reading articles, whether you're following the rumors, whether you're following punditry and analysis of the game, one of the things that I think we need to keep in mind, in my opinion, I have noticed over the years of watching football and consuming this media, is that there is always going to be a media narrative that's going to be painted. That media narrative is usually going to be skewed towards what I call the media darlings. There's the legacy media darlings, which are objectively or subjectively, however you want to look at it, your Liverpool, your Manchester United, right? Those are the clubs that are usually going to have kind of this like money in the bank and a spin. Of recent times, and because of their dominance, Manchester City has also gained some of this traction, although they kind of try to spin it with the Chelsea circus. Chelsea being the club that, you know, brought to football the super owner, and even though the super owner era seems to be coming to an end now with these consortiums starting to buy these sports franchise, they're always going to be what I call the media circus. That the media is always going to try to have a weird spin or sensationalized spin on what's going on them. So point in fact of what I'm saying with that is, the same thing can objectively happen to one player at one club, and then happen at the same exact scenario happen at another club, and the way the media covers it is totally different. Some of this, I will say controversially, has to do with racism sometimes. Sometimes it's nationalism. Sometimes it's just the legacy darlings and their favoritism, whether it's money in the bank from dominance in the past or from having unsuccessful runs in the past. In the case of like an Arsenal, for example. Pointed case right now, the fact that Arsenal has started great, and I think people are totally ignoring Arsenal's run right now. But we're going to get into that. So the first thing that I want to talk about to Chelsea fans specifically, because there is a big debate about who we're linked with and all of those things, is structure. One of the things that all the clubs that are going to be seen as having a positive trajectory, or that are going to be seen as higher up than Chelsea as far as the level or prestige, is going to be the fact that they have structure. I have a close friend of mine who we talk about football for years now, and one of the clubs that always gets mentioned about their structure is Bayern Munich. Now, Bayern Munich actually seems to have the chop and change with their manager going on quite frequently. But who gets this kind of like name of like quick change and cutthroat thing up until the whole Roman era has been Chelsea Football Club. Even though it seems like you go to Real Madrid and Bayern Munich, and both of those clubs change their manager just as frequently, if not more frequently, in the case of Bayern Munich. Why does it that Bayern Munich is never followed by that? Well, one thing is also English media is totally different to German media, right? The coverage is always going to be spun differently. But one of the other things is that they already have a structure in place. They have a philosophy in place. They can have they can have a coach like Pep Guardiola come there and arguably win games and still be told that he's not playing or winning in the Bayern way. What that has shown you is that the structure and that the philosophy of football is so deeply embedded in the culture of the fans and what they expect and the expectations of that club, that even winning is not enough for this club. And changing the style away from what they do best can be seen as a negative. Now, obviously, I'm also going to, in future videos, talk about how Chelsea's fans seem to be of two different minds and kind of spoiled by past things. And maybe this is kind of a little bit of the fans being spoiled too. So used to winning that now winning isn't good enough. It's also how they win and to win in a certain way. But that just shows you how strong their structure is. Now, granted, do they not have a leg up by being assisted by the German FA and, you know, pretty much the media always wanting to push top talents to Bayern and essentially turning the entire league into a feeder club for them, including of one of their bitter rivals, Dortmund, still has players going across there, which would be unheard of in English football. You'll never see, or you'll rarely ever see, a player go from Liverpool to Manchester or from Arsenal to Chelsea. It does happen, but those rivalries in the big six or your top four, traditional top four, it rarely ever happens that these players go directly there. They normally leave and go abroad and then come back to another club or something like that. There's always some kind of intermediate or something like that, or a running down of a contract on an older player. But someone in their prime is never leaving Manchester City and going to Manchester United or, you know, Newcastle, that we'll have to all worry about in the future. That all comes down to structure. Why am I bringing up structure? Well, structure is going to dictate the trajectory of which way your club is being run. That's why you see in the news right now for Chelsea Football Club, it's so important to Todd Bowley and his consortium to get a director of football in. Now, they were trying to get the Liverpool's old director of football in. He's still saying that he wants to finish out his sabbatical from football, away from the game. And even though he's saying the project sounds interesting, he still wants another year. I don't know if they're going to wait or if they're going to move on to another target or something, but it tells you that they want to get a structure in place. They don't just want to have a rich owner running around and saying, hey, get that guy, or have the manager have to be the only person that is doing, hey, this is the type of football I want. The manager can then, whoever the manager is at the time. Structure is very important. You can see that they're trying to do that. I can even see, we're even trying to sign prospects, youth prospects that are high quality, destined to be world talents or really good footballers, you know, high ceilings. And Chelsea fans seem to be lost upon this because they're too worried about the immediate future. Once you have a structure in place, you can focus on both things, the present day squad as well as the future at the same time. This is what I can see that Todd Bowley and the consortium are building towards. And while there's no money in the bank to have that kind of like, come on guys, look, he's done it in the past, all the signs point to this guy doing it the right way or attempting to do it the right way. Are there going to be bumps in the road? Absolutely. But the structure is important, which also means stick with the process. Endure the growing pains. It's not going to be a return to challenging right away for the title. It's not going to be, oh, we're going to win back-to-back Champions Leagues immediately. But it doesn't mean we need to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, hey, the same manager who came in halfway through a season and won us the Champions League, we need to get rid of this guy. It doesn't make sense. Going on to the next topic that I want to touch on is, and it kind of plays off of that same thing that I was talking about, is the media narrative. Even with your media legacy darlings like Liverpool and Manchester, you guys can learn from this as well. You have to remember what all of these things objectively are for. I commonly get into this conversation with a friend of mine about ESPN FC and what their pundits really are there for. Arguably, even Manchester United and Liverpool, as deemed by me to be the legacy media darlings, even your fans can learn from remembering what this punditry, what this media coverage, what the articles, what they are there for. Remember, some of these articles that you're reading are going to be there for clicks. They're looking for the most sensational headline that they can. And sometimes you'll notice that the same story is covered throughout the next 2 to 3 days with sneaky ways of saying the same thing. They can put, for example, I'm just going to pick a random player, Kai Havertz, to Bayern Munich. Because there was an inquiry about Kai Havertz going to Bayern Munich. Well, the next day they need a way to spin this. German flop is looking for a shock move back to Germany, right? So now they haven't put Bayern Munich or Kai Havertz on there. They need you to click back. So you're like, ooh, well, what I read about Kai Havertz yesterday. What are they talking about today? Those are tricks that they use. So remember that they're not objectively only there to inform you. They can know that there is absolutely no substantial evidence behind a bid for Harry Maguire or whoever, right? But it's sensational, it's a headline, it's going to lead to a click, it's going to lead to a read, it's going to lead to a watch or something like that. Same thing happens with the punditry. Going back to ESPN FC, I argue all the time that they're not there to make accurate predictions or analyze the game. It's for you to be able to follow certain pundits and their personalities, and they say something that is going to be sensationalized or that is so divisive that you're tuning in again to watch them. For example, my brethren who keeps talking about how bad their punditry is literally wanted to tune in after the Liverpool loss because he wanted to see what Stevie Nichols was going to do or how he was going to spin it or what his take on Liverpool's loss to Manchester United was. And I said, that's how they get you. That's it right there. It's kind of like before Barstool with Troops. People used to watch Arsenal TV when Arsenal would lose to see Troops lose his mind. It wasn't that Troops was saying something that made sense, and I'm not saying Troops doesn't say things that make sense or that his analyzing of the game and his team are bad. But let's be real, they were there for the circusry of it. So that's what a lot of these articles, a lot of this media is after. They're after the attention, and they will seek that attention with news or sometimes with just sensational headlines and spins. Things that they know that are either not true or they know they're just kind of creating a narrative to see if there's going to be a problem there. Prime example, I have seen the same exact action reported on very differently. Liverpool versus United. Now, this big high profile loss is when they start to acknowledge, maybe Liverpool might not be looking so hot. Now, you put that same start to Arsenal or Chelsea and it's doom and gloom and everything outside of them being relegated. The manager should be linked to leaving and all of this. But the same result is reported different. Again, same game. We see James Milner arguing with Van Dijk. I have seen this same exact action on the pitch reported as a positive. Oh, it's the passion. You can see they really care. But now that it's in a lost effort against United, all of a sudden it's, I wonder if there's something there that seems like more than just, the heat of an argument. Same exact action, same motion. Example, Van Dijk. Now, Van Dijk, I'm not saying isn't a great centre-back, but let people tell it. Before the season started, Van Dijk was the best centre-back in the world, arguably, right? He hasn't looked good in these last 3 games, and there's an argument to be made that he's to blame for Jadon Sancho's goal, right? Still, it's just the most I've seen said, I think I saw this on Talk Sport, was, oh, he looks too relaxed. There's no one talking about his form or what's going on with him or anything like that. Koulibaly, very mixed results in 3 games. But for the first 2 games, looks solid. Second game against Tottenham in a high-profile derby looks more than solid and pulls off an incredible volley. Chelsea get shellacked at Leeds United. No one looks good. None of the goals can be directly down to Koulibaly. If anything, the one glaring thing you obviously have to blame, partially in my opinion, on Koulibaly is the red card, because he knows that he already has a yellow, that professional foul isn't needed. But why I say partially is, again, I bring it up again. Thomas Tuchel has 5 substitutes. At this point in the game is pretty much over. We're already down 3-0. Cut your losses. Take him off and put on Trevor Chalobah and save him for another game. I blame that second yellow on Thomas Tuchel almost as much as I do Koulibaly. But after that game, the same Talk Sport are talking about Koulibaly and is he prepared for, or is he up to the challenge of the Premier League? Now, out of those 2 centre-backs I just mentioned, both are having, as I said, it's not like Koulibaly is off to a flyer, but who's having the better season so far? I would argue Koulibaly. They've lost the same amount of games, and Koulibaly has a win under his belt. And let's also not forget that the new media darlings, in my opinion, Spurs, were lucky to leave the bridge with a point. If it wasn't down to bad refereeing with a hair pull non-call, that game ends 2-1 and we're looking at Chelsea with 2 wins and 1 loss. They definitely deserve to get beaten by Leeds. But this idea that now, oh, Chelsea's in this huge turmoil. Chelsea are missing 2 specific things right now. Maybe they have a bit of a midfield issue right now because both Kovacic and Kante were out. But again, follow the narrative of the media and you will be led astray. You are a fan of this club. Pay attention to what's actually happening. Pay attention to how quickly they will throw the word flop into a headline when it comes to Chelsea, Arsenal, Spurs, or any other club. But how long Harry Maguire can be a living meme and you've never seen an article where they call him a flop. There's plenty of people making fun of him, but it's mostly social media. It's mostly us that are making fun of him. You're not really seeing that punditry in there. A matter of fact, I saw people shocked that he was benched against Liverpool, as if his form, his current form, warranted that he was. Why do you think, for example, the same media were sensationalizing the fact that Chelsea were supposedly in for him? It's a narrative that is being painted. They're always going to be positive towards certain clubs until they have to offer some criticism. And then even that criticism is soft. And the second your club does something, it's spun into this media circus. So keep that in mind is all I can say. And as always, thank you again for tuning into this. Please, please, please leave your comments. Please tell me why I am out of my mind and wrong below, and we can have further talks about this. Until then, don't get caught in front of goal and miss an absolute sitter.